All right.
Teach an old dog new tricks. Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions and routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. Hiring Brooke means absolutely no call goes unanswered, boosting your customer satisfaction and reducing your overhead costs. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend with human-level understanding in a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations, making her the easiest onboard you'll ever have. She can handle any volume of calls and follows your policies every step of the way, 24/7. That means even when the lights are off, Brooke is always on.
And I can do it without missing a beat.
You really do check all the boxes. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
See that light above the bathroom door over there? That's a big time saver for our technicians and other recon staff. The light goes on when the bathroom is occupied. Now techs keep working until the light goes out. Then they know for sure the room is empty. And when they're busy there, they're also catching up on the news. Not bad news, but news they need for the job. I post these where they can't be missed. Too often, the search for the right product brings valuable time. This inexpensive detailer's cart organizes supplies. Now techs lay their hands on what they need without delay. We got these time savers from Rapid Recon, the reconditioning software company that's always defining better reconditioning solutions for dealerships like yours. When the goal is to get cars through recon in 72 hours or less, every step, every minute, every better decision made helps towards that goal. For more recon efficiency ideas like these, talk to the recon experts at rapidrecon.com.
All righty. Good morning. Oops.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Listen to this in the afternoon.
Come
Good
on.
afternoon.
There it is.
Actually, it's afternoon where you are, Ray, isn't it?
It is just past, yes.
All righty. So in case anyone's going to the used car week going on in Toronto later this month, we will be live on the last day of the show. It is one of the largest used car events in Canada. That's not big from a U.S. perspective, but probably 500 to 600 dealers, and it should be an interesting 3-day event. We're doing a subprime panel on the last day, which is the 29th. We'll be doing it live, so we'll be streaming it as well. Go ahead, Mr. Jeff. All right, well, let's go through the books first. I have to thank Joe Caruso for sending me this book on 99 Objections. Reading it right now. Pretty interesting book. Thanks to Joe. And if you're looking to get better at closing and want some tips there, it's a Bible, really, of closes. It's actually pretty good. Highly recommend. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's 400 pages, most of which is clothing. So it's kind of interesting. And The Art and Science of Running a Dealership from Max Zanin, the crazy Russian we've had on the show before. He's pretty interesting. And then Irreplaceable Service Manager by Chris Collins. I don't know if anyone knows Chris, but he's got some great videos and stuff as well. So go ahead, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Before I talk about our disclaimer, which does talk about the views expressed here are that of our guests and not necessarily of us. And sometimes there are some things that are not totally politically correct. I do have to tell you that I made the big mistake of calling some there one day. And I got the Brooke assistant for the dealership, and I had a very good conversation until I realized I was speaking not with our Brooke that's on the show today, but Brooke AI, which is pretty amazing stuff. I also had to comment on the Rapid Recon video because I've seen it 20, 30 times, and the lady that's in that video, when I realized the washroom light going out was, and what she posted in there was very interesting. I think what they should do is put a cell phone jammer in there. Moving right along, please look at our disclaimer online just to understand where we are, because the opinions here, nothing's really off edge, and but just in case, we have had the odd one that goes a little crazy, gets a little political. I have no idea who that is, but we'll move on. Ian.
And the show is Sales versus Fixed Ops Show. I guess I misspelled that anyway. It is what it is, but Sales versus Fixed Ops is a battle that we've been going on for a long time in automotive. And essentially, as we saw in the video earlier, if you weren't there, essentially you have basically a battle that's been going on for a long time. So let's get into it. So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, the car industry is the car industry. I don't care who you are. Even Tesla now, which is moving to actually a dealership model, which they said they weren't. So they do have sales versus fixed ops. But joining us today is a group of experts, and it's we're very pleased to have people. We're always proud of the people we can get here. But first of all, joining us for the first time is Scott Gregg, who's a fixed operations manager at Tucson Subaru in a very warm place, Tucson, Arizona. Please introduce yourself, Scott. Tell us a little bit about yourself, too.
Good morning, Scott Gregg, like I said, fixed ops director at Tucson Subaru. It is plenty warm here. Been hitting well over 100 every day. So I've been in business for a long time, 43 years actually this year. So seen a lot of stuff and done a lot of things. And happy to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on the show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time. Also new to the show today is Ray Trechak. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Who's the sales manager from Fredericton Hyundai in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Ray, please say hello, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Right on. Ian, Jeff, thanks for having me on the show. I'm very pumped and really excited to learn through some of the conversations as well. I wish I could say it was warm out, but I took to work this morning and it's raining and foggy, so we'll just leave it at that. About 5 years in the industry now and really looking forward to keep learning. So excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And actually one nice thing about not having 25 or 30 years experience is from a newer position on the sales versus fixed ops thing, you can't go from history. So it's going to be great to hear. And we have a show guest, been on a few times, our friend Brooke Furnace, who is not the Brooke from Brooke AI, who's the president and founder of BZ Consultants, if you're in Canada, BZ, and an athletic shoe connoisseur from somewhere in the neighborhood of Chicago. Brooke, say hi, please.
Hello. Yes, I do have a bit of a shoe problem. It is a problem. I'm not going to do anything about it except buy more shoes. Yes, but thank you so much. I love every time I'm on here. It is always such a fun time. And we have, lots of fun. But yeah, that's exactly who I am. And just excited to be here with you all. So, hello.
Perfect, thank you. And last but far from least is somebody new to the show, Tim Hayden, who is the CEO of Brain Trust's Chief of Business Strategy at the Next in Austin, Texas. And Tim, please introduce yourself. Tell us your connection to the fine art of sales versus fixed ops.
Sure. No, happy to be here with everybody, and glad I'm not the only one who this is their first rodeo. This is going to be a lot of fun. As you already stated, at Brain Trust, we're out to help companies with transformation of their business, and that all starts with data. And data is what is at the center of the fixed ops and sales conundrum that we're going to discuss today. I can't let Tucson go away as being the hot place, because we're on day 12 of above 100 degrees here in the middle of Texas, which is so abnormal for us, but we just might be hotter than the good folks in Tucson.
Well, I can tell you this, you're definitely hotter than us in the Great White North. For the Americans in Vancouver that get off the cruise ships and walk around here, they're kind of going, yeah, I think I got to walk around here in June with a ski rain jacket on, because it ain't warm here. So
Right.
I wouldn't like 100 degrees, but boy, I don't like 55 and 60 degrees either. So Ian, please go on to the first question for everybody.
Yeah.
Get this ball rolling.
Essentially, when we're looking at this conundrum of sales versus fixed ops, the big question I always get is, why, can't we all just get along? Why does there have to be a long-lasting feud exist, or does it still exist between sales and fixed ops, in your opinion? So let's start from the beautiful place, Arizona. Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
I think it does still exist. Maybe it's not quite as bad as it used to be. And it's, like I said, I've been around a long time, and way back in the day, there were many dealers that even had told me to my face, if I could just shut the service department and nail the doors closed, I would, because I don't like it. I have to have it. And it's just a necessary evil. So I think that's kind of where it all started. At this point, it's almost like the Hatfields and McCoys. Some people don't even know why they're feuding anymore. And it's definitely not necessary, and it's definitely not productive. I try very hard to make sure that we don't have that feud anywhere that I work. So, and it's a much better relationship. I have a number of people that come to work here, and they're like, wow, sales and service gets along. I can't believe that. I've never seen that before. So I do push really hard to get rid of that feud, and it's more productive and more profitable for everybody if you can, for sure.
Appreciate that. Have you found that changed at all as we had less new and used inventory?
Yes, it definitely has. Obviously, fixed ops, even since the recession in 2008, has been a more important part of the dealership world. And a lot more dealers have come to embrace the fixed ops department, and that has helped a lot with that. And then with the inventory struggles, obviously it's been put on fixed ops shoulders kind of to carry the load. So there is more emphasis on everybody getting along, taking care of each other, getting cars serviced as quickly as possible, getting the used cars recon and everything. So, fixed ops has definitely come to the forefront.
Thanks for that. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, we live and breathe it every day, and maybe I'm at a bit of an advantage with our dealership here locally, because we do get along. We're like any large family that spends 90% of their time together. There's obviously going to be an uproar here or there, but we've done a great job of removing the internal walls and communicating with one another on a face-to-face basis, which has helped us sort of take the leap toward a common good, I guess, if you want to call it that. But we found, removing the electronic devices and taking the 200 yards walk down to your service department or your parts department to help out, or to get an answer to your question instead of relying on an email or a text or a phone call return, has helped us. So yes, we definitely see the situation occur. However, being conscious of it and keeping communication open has helped us improve. We're not going to be 100% all the time, but we're working.
Fantastic. Brooke, what do you think?
So I've been in the industry for a minute here, and I've seen everything from extreme, we're going to say hatred, to everyone getting along. And you saw going back to same thing back in 2008, where it was, hey, if you don't see the value in fixed ops, you're going to close up shop. Like it's as simple as that. And like I said, going back to I've seen dealerships. I'll use an example of a group that I've worked with in the past, and that they would full out shovel to the line of where sales and service began / stopped. I'm like, we're not going to work with you. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is how bad. And then yet that same dealership group, now they work together, like they're good, but it took from the top up to say, hey, this is going no more. Like, we're going to come together and make this work. And once they were able to say, hey, no, everyone come together, we're going to have meetings together. It's no more you work in this one, and it's no more of these siloed bullshit. I'm sorry, I have a sailor's mouth. So there's no more of this, none of this. Like, we're going to work together as a team, because once you see that, I'll start throwing stats in here later on, but because of fixed ops, we succeed. And because of sales, we succeed. But understand, once the person buys the car, that is only the first transaction. All the other stuff happens at fixed ops at the back end, where they service the car. If they aren't buying tires from us, if they aren't servicing, that customer is never coming back to us. So understand, once their eyes are open to saying, hey, oh wait, they're really, really important, and we need them, they need us, and the communication has to happen. It's okay, now I see it. But for so long, it's this stigma of, well, we can't work with them, and they're not talking to us. Well, they sold the warranty and they're not backing. Well, just talk, communicate. So I've seen some really, really bad, like, oh my gosh, we hate each other, and then they came together. So if that can happen, to just some awesome examples on here of, hey, we all love each other, but we're family, so we're going to fight. So I've seen, I think, every spectrum of it, and it is so insanely vital. Fixed ops, it's something I preach pretty heavily, that it is so important. Anytime I talk to a group, any dealership, it is first and foremost tell them about service. Yes, service is very important, but I need to make sure that service is included in this conversation, because it is so important.
Thanks for that. Tim, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think this is just a natural part of the business, right? I mean, over the last 15 years, the auto industry is like any other industry. It's over digitized itself, right? Because every dealer is willing to invest in another software as a service platform, another media channel, something else, just to move 2-3 more pieces of metal. And to what I've heard a lot of people say, and what that 7-year-old video that we led off with today really hammered home, right, is the need for customer centricity, right? It's the same customer. It's the same customer that's been identified out there in the ether that somehow came, kicked tires, took a test drive, bought a car. And to what Brooke just said, the relationship really blossoms and grows from there. And we need to, if you can quantify it, 90% plus of the relationship is going to happen after they drive off the lot. And as I said, you know, when I introduced myself, it's because in dealerships there's not a single source of truth. You've got people in different departments and different functions of the business that are using different tools with the same customer's data swimming through it, right? The DMSs, everybody else says that they've come up with cures for this, but they haven't. So, you know, technology's only made worse what's a natural thing that's happened in terms of, you know, what everybody's thought was their real estate. And I think we're at a crossroads right now. Some of the things Scott said earlier, right? We've got the things we can't control. You had the pandemic, got a recession, got an inventory, a supply chain issue. These things aren't going away. These forever alter what's happening there. And we haven't even mentioned the other elephants in the room with electrification that threatens fixed ops. I mean, there's a lot that's coming down. The time for infighting is no longer.
100%. Thanks for that. Jeff?
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that stuff. We say that the time for for infighting is over. There really never was the time for infighting, and
right.
You know, this age-old battle. Hey, I've been in the car business a long time, and I'll never forget when the dealer I first joined, the service department was across the street. And the worst thing in the world is to have physical separation on top of this mental one. It's almost like a bicycle, the pedals being mad at the chain, because they have to work together. But here's the funny thing, and you know, we can relate to this, but you know, we came up with this second question, and the interesting part is many people working in those fields, their first answer is going to be me. But so who's more important? Sales or fixed ops? It's the chicken and the egg, basically. Who came first? And I'm going to go to let's see. Let's go to Ray, because he doesn't have any long hatred issues to deal with.
I was really hoping you were going down south first, but that's okay. All right. Listen, yeah. I mean, I'm. If I would have to choose, I'm gonna sit on the fence, because I actually, as part of my role, am the main communicator in the dealership between sales and fixed on a daily basis. And I know that my job personally would be significantly more challenging if we did not have that open communication and willingness to do the ultimate best for our customer at the end of the day, which is a relationship that we've built over time, mainly by getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus, with all departments, not just sales, not just service. So, you know, I think we do have to live synergistically together, and I guess I'll call myself lucky. I had a very short time where fixed in our bricks and mortar was not on the same page. And in an effort to get everybody on the right page, we went at it a full team. It was a full team approach to make sure that we were all speaking the same language. So with sales, my sales team runs hard every single day, and we lean on our fixed team, especially at month end when it's time to push as many across the curve as possible and hit that number. And vice versa, we really rely on the service department to do an excellent job when our guests come back and visit, so that when it comes time to trade in that 2018 Elantra and our lot is empty, more willing to have that conversation with us. So I'm a sales guy. I'll say sales, but it's really a team effort. That's pretty much as far as I can gonna go with it.
I appreciate that, Ray. Now, interesting, you mentioned the bus. So is it really true, Scott, that the B-back bus has actually been driven by somebody in fixed ops?
I don't think so, but there can be animosity from both sides. So, you know, the bottom line is everybody really just needs to get along, and there needs to be not any feeling that one side's more important than the other, because everybody's important. We're all part of the team, and there is no I in team, as they say. So we all do need to work together and pull together and win the race together. Sales is definitely important. They sell the first car, but then fixed ops is the ones that sell the rest. We have to keep the customer coming back so that they do purchase another car. And, you know, nobody needs to be driving a bus, really. It should be, or everybody should be riding on the bus together, I guess you could say. Because really, if we don't, especially in these times, everything's a struggle. It seems like parts, inventory, you name it. We all really just have to be pulling together and making it all work.
So the interesting, you know, we talk about this is something we should do, and successful dealers do it. But of course, then you get the case of when the service department gets a customer with, in your case, a 2018 Outback that they've been having fun in the Arizona desert, etc., and they've clogged up things because they didn't do a service, and they clogged up their air filters and everything. They come back in, they get the service department crucifies the car. They go to sales, they buy a new car, and then of course the tech gets really pissed because it comes back to him from sales, and they say, just change the air filter, don't worry. After he or she did their job. So it becomes very interesting, and then comes that argument of who's more important. And it's funny because I'm a firm believer, if the service department sets it up right for sales and they sell a new car, they should get many of the things except perhaps the the coolant flush that they keep pushing for, but we won't get into that. Tim, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I just think, this is something that I see again across all industries, and that is that most brands have thought about marketing and sales as a game of acquisition and acquisition only. And, the nature, the way things were broken up, fixed ops oversees what I think is retention. And I think dealer groups, OEMs, as the vehicles become connected and there's the whole DTC thing that could happen, who knows when, it's all about that growth through retention, right? And again, somebody said that, I think even statistically, there was something that was offered on that opening video about data showing that the people who had problems with their vehicles but came in and had an excellent customer experience were more likely to come back and buy another vehicle. I've seen that happen with Dell computers, right? The people that had the worst problems with their computers, to the point of blue screens with Microsoft and batteries catching on fire. Those are the people that, if they had gold support, they had somebody in North America who answered the phone, took care of them, and they came back and they bought more than they bought the first time after that bad experience. Same thing with vehicles, same thing. Just growth through retention and changing that mindset and having everybody, to what a few folks have already said, it's not just sales or fixed ops, it's everybody understanding. That's the game. That's what we have to be after, from first touch to third oil change.
Yeah, we had a representative from Google on the show last week, and she was talking specifically around women in the auto industry, but more importantly, customer experience, and how that really dictated whether or not the women even came into that brand or dealership. They were very much more dealer-centric in terms of experience than the men. I'm still trying to get all the details from Google, but I'm sure I'll have those shortly if anyone's interested. But I think it was something like 65% of the reason was experience from women, which was kind of interesting.
Well, the interesting thing is going to be on this particular question of who's more important. In about a year's time, when you've got all these people with their full load vehicles that are missing the heated seats. Of course, you need them down in Texas and Arizona, don't you? And their blind spot monitorings that don't work, and they get a lovely mail or email that says, "Great news! You can have your chips put in." And the salespeople are sitting there screaming at service saying, "I need my customer taken care of," and service is going, "We don't have any openings because we got 800 people want these chips in." But Brooke, I'm going to ask you this because you're not in either departments. Who's more important?
I go to, it's like choosing your favorite child. And so I am going to say both. I would maybe tend to lean one way, but in this one, I am going to say both. So I think, Jeff, you brought up having service to, having different locations. Larry, I'm going to bring you into this one a little bit here. So Larry has a little saying, a lot of saying. He likes to say that he calls my husband and tells him and I actually tell my husband to tell Larry to back off. And Larry calls my husband and says, no, so we kind of go back and forth on this a little one, jokingly. But Chris had one of his dealerships where sales was in one location. It was downtown Chicago. Sales was in one location. The service department was, and if you're familiar with downtown Chicago, it's not very easily, trying to get around, especially when your sales, it's a boutique, it's a destination store. So service was another probably 3 miles away. And then where they actually housed all the cars is a parking garage, another like 2, 3, 4 miles away. So let's say now, hey, I want to go check on a vehicle or someone that sells. And there was so much logistics. If the team didn't speak to each other, have constant communication, man, it was a nightmare. And Chris had to have a lot of trust in his service advisors, his service techs, his service manager. And not only that, his sales team. They had to have so much cross-training. And I think we really forget how important cross-training is and everything. Because, hey, okay, we're going to have someone always working on the service drive to say, hey, how can we obtain more sales? Because I go back to consumers who visit service departments in the last 12 months are 74% more likely to purchase a vehicle from you. So who's really more important? I mean, this is such a family that works together. So this is a very extreme scenario where we have 3 different locations and, hey, I want a car. Well, oh crap, the car's not on site here. it might be, but more than 90% of the chance it's over in it's undergrounds in a parking garage. Oh wait, it's over in service. Well, man, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get over there. So there's all these different things to say, which is important is it really is choosing a favorite child, because it's a team that's working together to get there. There really is that there isn't one that's, in my opinion, you're all working together if you're all working together toward a common goal. There's not one that's more important than the other. It really is important.
Can I jump in for a second, guys?
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I knew I was opening the door with that one, Larry. I knew it. Let's bring it, dude.
First of all, before I say anything else, Tim, is to your left. Is that a BB King up on your wall?
That's an autographed BB King. Yes.
Okay. I'm already engaged to Brooke, but I think I'm starting to like you the best, man. We'll talk muddy waters later after the show.
Let's do it.
Okay. Listen, I owned a dealership and I had a union shop, which is pretty much like every day putting a screwdriver in your eye. If I told you how many times at 5 o'clock they walked off a job that they could have finished in 4 more minutes, and I didn't have the guy in the loaner car, and then he had an accident, blah, blah, blah. The real answer here, in my humble opinion, is just communication. Because unless you have 100 loaner cars and 17 extra mechanics, it's never going to work. When I was a salesman before I owned the place, I used to freak out because I handled every service customer myself, so I outsold everybody, because that's the key to everything. They're there, they're captured. And I can't tell you how many times I go back and say, I picked this guy's car up. He doesn't have a loaner. His name is Mr. Johnson. Just let me know by 2 o'clock. And if he doesn't have his car, I'll go pick his kid up for him. Tim, everybody, can you imagine how many times at 2 o'clock, at 2:15, I call them and say, I didn't hear from you. We're good. Oh, I didn't look at it yet. It all comes down to communication. If you put your arm around somebody and say, listen, it's crazy how busy we are. And I know you need a vehicle, so I'm going to do this, or pick you up or pay for an Uber, whatever. Because you can't, you know what I mean? It's like cutting the baby in the air. There is no absolute answer, but the answer to everything is communication. I had sales service meetings to stop my guys from hating each other, because it's the dumbest thing of all time. Sales sells the first car, service sells the rest of them. And if you don't work together, everybody loses. So I just think it's all down to communication. Aren't you sorry you asked me, Brooke?
Nobody's ever sorry we asked you.
Sorry, always, Larry. I always know something great's going to come out. Always.
By the way, so we're very clear. Okay, my flight was canceled today. You said no politics, so I won't even talk about what's going on in this insane country, which is the greatest country on earth. Sorry, Canadian guys. But I saw you guys. I saw Brooke. I realized Tim's a Blues fan. I said I had to get on. So if you see me on the phone or muting, it's because I'm trying to get my rental car straightened out for tomorrow and change the hotel around. But it's nice to see everybody.
It's good to see you too, Larry.
Always a pleasure, Larry. Always.
I do have to say that one of the best salespeople I ever had, who was about 75% repeat and referral business, he said, salespeople say they're my clients. He says, no, they're my customers. Service has clients, because he says, I may see my favorite customer, I might see 3 times in a year, but he's got 5 cars and he's in the service department 10 times a year. So they're his client. So it's a good point we have to remember. Ian, next.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you brought that up, Brooke, because I actually worked at a Honda store here in our local market that had that same problem. They have cars stored downtown. They have a service department that's, half a mile away or from their sales department. And the thing that was really interesting to me when I worked there was that virtually no salespeople went and talked to service. So I made it a point of always doing that for a couple of reasons. A, that's where all the customers were. But B, nobody talked to them. So there's a lot of opportunity there to build that relationship with the service techs and the service team. Now, this dealership was interesting because they also had a motorcycle department as well, which was kind of interesting for different reasons. But yeah, when you have that separation physically, it makes it a lot more complicated. And you just need to set that customer up for, okay, I'm happy to have the car for you here at 2 o'clock or whatever, but just let me know so I can make all that happen. And you kind of have to explain that to people because customers are so used to those cars being physically there, right?
Yeah, to top it off, they didn't have a parking lot either. So because it's downtown Chicago, there's no parking. So on top of everything else, it was like, okay, so this is how you got like 3 spots per valet and everything else that, so it was, and they still were number 1 in for the district and everything for sell and for fixed ops and for service. So it comes down to that, going back to what Lauren said, communication and training. I mean, it's just invest in your people. That's bottom line, invest in your people.
Yeah, we didn't have any parking. There. Still don't. We actually used to have to pay parking tickets sometimes. I'm throwing out potentially a wacky idea. In a combination used car lot, service shop, one person may handle everything for a customer, with the industry amalgamating a number of areas such as sales, F&I, fixed ops, having just a front counter, service and parts. Is the idea of one person for one customer for all dealerships viable, or am I just being crazy or silly? Let's start with Brooke, since you were just talking to Brooke. Go ahead.
So you're talking for sales or service?
I'm talking just one
Yes.
contact point. I mean, there seems to be a lot of move from industry. No, not pointing any fingers. That one person can do it all. I have no idea why, but I'm just curious even if that's possible.
So I think one point of contact for sales, it is possible. Yes, I mean A2 Zinc does a great job with that process, but it comes down to training. If we're just, anyone that's heard me get on my soapbox about this, slapping a button on your site does not mean that something is going to work for you. We've all heard Ford come out and say whatever he wants to say. Saying you're going to do something and forcing and shoving this down someone's throat doesn't mean it's going to work. Not thinking it through correctly or saying it. I listened to Teddings had it in After Dark fixed ops round table, and had an interesting perspective on this, saying that, well, this was done in front of shareholders. So is this really what's going to happen, or is he just doing this to suffice some people in front of some people? But going back to your question is, yes, can it be done? Yeah, that's great. If from a consumer standpoint, a consumer really likes that from a sales perspective. Hey, I'm only working with one person. It speeds up the process. It makes it more seamless. I'm not being passed around like a hot potato around to different people. So yeah, 100%. It's doable. It's a great idea, but it works in certain aspects. There are certain people, especially now, where prices are what they are, that it's not going to work because they want to get passed around to 15 different people and they want to drag out the experience. But when it comes down to prices are what they are. So that's what you're going to pay. So I go back to, yes, it is possible, but after now, are people going to continue to do that? I don't know. When it comes down to service, that gets a little bit trickier, I think, because you're working, you get checked in. Hey, I'm working with Brooke as the service, or my service person. Is Brooks not in 3 days, or my next person, I say yes and no to that, I guess, because it comes down to training. It comes down from the top. Is this really what we're going to do? And it may not be a fit for every single person.
Yeah.
Might be a hybrid.
Scott, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea, but a lot of it would depend on volume, if they could handle the number of customers that they would need to handle. And, we do have a really good relationship here between sales and service. So a lot of our customers do just use their salesperson as a point of contact. They'll contact them. Hey, I need to bring my car in for service. They will reach out to the service department. We'll get them all set up on an appointment. And it kind of is one person handling from beginning to end. But, we do over 100 cars a day in service. And some of our salespeople, when we had the inventory, were selling 25 cars a month. So it would be hard for one person to keep up with that kind of volume all the way beginning to end, but it would be wonderful if they could.
Right.
So we do try to cultivate that some. If people want to work with the same advisor every time, that's more than fine. And if they want to work with the same salesperson every time, that's great too. And if they want their help getting something done in service, that's good. So we do put it all together like that somewhat.
It's a very interesting point, though, when you made there when you said where people are bounced around from people to people. And if they get into service, and sometimes the person that they might know there isn't there, and somebody else is there, they have no relationship with them. So perhaps if that point of contact were the salesperson, they may not exactly understand half the stuff, because let's not kid each other. The best salespeople have no clue what goes on in a car. But when they're trying to present recommended services and intervals, it may not be a bad idea.
Great. Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to the people part of it. I've got 8 guys on the floor, and every single one of them come from a different background, have a different level of volume that they can handle, and they have their own personalities on how they approach their day-to-day business with their consumer. But the number one common thread I see, especially with their repeat business, are the people that come back and either trade in a car or bring a family member or their graduate to come in and buy their first car ever, is they seem to have a relationship with more than just one individual underneath our roof. They know so-and-so down in service. They've had a conversation with our general manager out on the lot just walking by. They know one of our sales managers. They have a favorite F&I guy. And it's really neat because it's interesting to watch the guys and how they control that conversation. So while they may be, the captain or run their own book of business, I really like seeing the relationships that are built in all different departments. We've got a gentleman who was just in this morning. He's on his 6th Hyundai, and he knows when people leave. He's brought cookies in for people's birthday parties when they're downstairs in service, and he has that same type of relationship with the sales guys. So that synergy between it all. I mean, it's not all roses. Trust me, we've all right. Having one person control it all, I think just harmoniously, if the consumer, which let's face it, that's why we all have bank accounts going. The consumer is why we're all here. And if they have a great experience, then they almost control their own relationships and who they build them with and who they don't.
Great answer. Thanks. Tim, what do you think?
Well, I like to think back to when I was a teenager and I was living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and my dad and mom had a series of Cadillacs and Lexi. Is that plural for Lexus?
Yeah, Lexi.
But it was all through Sewell, right? And everybody's familiar with the Sewell name. And the thing about it was back then, my dad had one phone call that he would make, and it was to the guy who was selling him the car, who would then, if it was a recall or the check engine light was on or something, that person would then have some type of decision tree, I would assume, because we would be automatically referred to somebody else in the dealer. It's only happened 5 or 6 times in 30 or so years ago, but it's totally capable today from a technology standpoint for everybody in the dealer to have access to a customer record that has everything about that customer that you need to know in it and accessible to them, plus some type of automated way of saying everyone who looks and acts and drives the same kind of car as this has had these top 10 things that they had as problems or they had as opportunities or as services, and there's a lot to unpack there, but it's where it needs to go. And I think, Scott said it and a few of you said it, Brooke said it too. The hard part of this is going to be the training and the culture change that'll have to take place in a dealer, in an organization, to be able to really leverage and capitalize on that type of information. But my point in telling you the Sewell story before is we've been here before. This is what customers want. This is what they're looking for, a relationship. And I think, going back to the original question, yes, why not one person who is the main point of contact? It's totally possible.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jeff.
Well, I have to say you brought up Sewell because I remember actually seeing a trainer coming in, and I'd like to make our training as good as this person, because he actually required everybody to read Carl Sewell's Customer for Life book before we did the training. So 2 weeks before, everybody got a copy of that delivered to them at the dealership. And I read that, and the thing that sticks in my mind most of all, and this is before the days of roadside assistance, is he said in the book, maybe I don't remember correctly, but at that time he had 2 stores, maybe, I don't know. But there was always one technician for weekends, because they weren't open on weekends at that time in service, that had a van. And that van was full of tools and manuals and tech and whatever they needed. And that tech was on call. So if somebody flew into DFW and they lost their car keys, that person had everything. They'd call one number. That person at 2 a.m. would get into the van, drive to the airport, cut them a key for their car so they could head on. And very interesting. May not be this one person point, but boy, does that stick in my mind about customer relations and customer service. And truly, it reminds us, it doesn't matter if it's sales, if it's service. Who's that customer going to go buy another car from?
Right.
Next time they need it, they're going to go to Charlie Smith's Lexus down the street and in another town. No, they're going to drive down there because holy cow, 2 a.m. I was going to say it's raining. It doesn't rain very often there, but there I am stuck at the airport all alone, and some guy pulls up in a van and he says he takes care of me, and not very long. So that's great. So one of my favorite questions, every show I've got into the habit. I used to do a quick quiz, but I dumped that because this is my favorite. What is the biggest blunder? What's the biggest mistake do you see dealers doing in department relations? So in basically the fixed ops versus variable ops, boy, that's tough. What's the biggest mistake? I'm staring right at Tim, who's front and center on my screen. So Tim, give me your opinion, because actually I really like to get yours, because you do not have a loyalty to either side.
No, I don't. And, I think I've heard a lot of folks just talk about the point of communications, right? And we unpack that a couple of different ways. We said too many people involved, the customer being handed off from person to person or department to department. And you guys that are in the business know what that looks like right now. It's usually a manila folder. It's got files in it that goes from the sales to the F&I place and the F&I office. And then from the F&I office, maybe it's scanned in and maybe you've got a customer number and your VIN and all of that is identified now in service. Still, it's a disjointed thing. And my personal experience as someone on the outside, right, who has, in my 50 years have bought 10 vehicles from dealers over the years. And then I've had that experience, which I was just party to what my parents did. It's been since Sewell that I ever felt like I had any reason to go back to the dealer that sold me a car in the first place. I've just not felt that for the 10 vehicles that I bought. And it's been exactly what we're talking about here. There's no continuity. There's no continuity in terms of how I'm handled or how I'm served. Again, it's compartmentalized as fixed ops, but it's a different service tech every time I call. Or I walk in there because I happen to be in the neighborhood and the sales guy that sold me the car, I think that person should trust me, or I should trust them to point me in the right direction, but they've got no recollection of who I am, So it's communications and the blunders that I think a lot of us are talking about are because of the disparate operation that exists there. And obviously, a few of you don't have to worry about this because you've got some harmony between how this is set up, sales and fixed ops. But there's still that need to, I think, have it be customer centric and do something, as you guys have heard me say 3 times now, from a data standpoint, to give everybody that heads up view of all the information on a customer.
Tim, can I jump in on what you're saying?
As long as you promise that you're not going to use Hertz or Enterprise for your rental car, yeah.
Man, listen. Why don't you just pick me the hell up? We can listen to some good news on the way. Carl Sewell is a genius and wrote a great book, but back then, Inner Moron Demons, my book wasn't available, which is a life changer. But we'll talk about it later. Make sure you reach out to me on LinkedIn, Tim.
Do it.
The blunder they make is they don't set a proper example. I was the number 2 Cadillac salesman in the United States out of Trenton. Try that sometime. Not out of Texas or New York or Florida. I wound up owning the dealership, and I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sell you anything. The results I'm getting with training and recruiting is worth anybody. Put them in the room with me, they'll get ashamed. And the reason is I learned every negative. I saw a manager walk out to GM, I'll never forget it. I tell all my classes, And the operator said, "You have a call, boss." And he went, "Tell him I left." And if she can say bullshit, Brooke, I can say asshole. I thought, what an asshole. What if the guy's got the smallest problem? You solve it, you look like a hero. What if he wants to buy 3 cars?
Always.
So I am a degenerate phone answerer. Brooke and Jeff and all these people, and hopefully you'll tell people I'm always in a good mood. I bring energy to burn. That's what the owner has to convey. I pulled my service manager and GM in and said, "Listen, I love both you guys. You're the best." And they went, "Thanks, boss." I says, "Don't thanks me. I'm about to fire both of you." "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "If you can't get along, I'll find 2 guys that can. I want you to kiss each other's asses. I want you to be the best of friends because you're costing me money." It's got to be the example set from the top, because every dealer says the same thing. We take care of our customers. Bullshit. You're out on the boat, okay, with a bikini model, and you don't know what your guys are doing. I was on with Brooke. I was on with David Long. He laughed his ass off. They were all talking tech. And they said, one of the guys said, "You should look at your own website." And if you've ever seen All Things Used Cars, there's a box. Every once in a while, I'm lucky enough to have my services up there. But I said, "David, if you're going to do that, put the suicide prevention hotline number." Because if dealers looked at their own website, they killed themselves.
It's bad. It's so bad.
You have to set an example. You got to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Now, when I say hold people accountable, give them love. Pull them into the office and say, "I love you. Please don't make me fire you." But if you take your eye off the ball, you're cooked. You're cooked. The only reason I'm not committing suicide, because I got 40 people scheduled. I have a guy in Florida. I just hired a guy in St. Louis. The guys love me and respect me. I don't screw them on money, and I set a nice example. But if the example is not from the top, Carl Sewell is a legend, because this guy would be the first guy to take care of somebody. But if you this is what we're going to do, and you don't do it, Tim, I went to all the trainers, okay? I thought Joe Verdi was a little boring. That's why they keep the air conditioning up. Got tired of Cardone trying to sell me shit. But the funniest thing was you come back, and every manager said the same thing. "We're not doing that bullshit. That's the disconnect. So again, all this stuff, everybody on this panel, you can tell is a great communicator. You guys all know how to talk. You know how to schmooze. That's what we have to teach our people, particularly anybody younger than me and Tim, because the 18-year-olds have no clue how to spell, how to add and subtract, or how to communicate.
Hey, Ray's getting mad at you.
Ray, you're cool.
Larry, I would add to that people don't know how to look up from their damn phone. So being able to not just communicate, but communicate in love in an engaging way to say, "Hey, look up from your phone," and more than that, and communicate in that engagement
Brooke,
that way.
When we did lunch, you never once looked at your phone. Is this why
you're
jealous?
I'm about 18.
So moving right along, I love it. It's very interesting you mentioned that, because we talk about the mistakes that they make in department relationships, and Larry, you brought this up too. The same dealer principal, and I worked for this fellow, who had a back door in his office so he could leave when a customer had a complaint, was the person that wanted sales or variable and fixed to battle, because that way they couldn't gang up on them. And so it's a very interesting thing. And before I move on to Scott on this, I saw a post today on LinkedIn, and we're talking about how we cannot resist our inner demon. Larry, I got to plug in for your book, or Inner Moron Demon. This particular person posted, me and you like this, that they went out looking for a car. They're a car person.
Yep.
They went looking for a car. They're also a vet. And in Canada, unfortunately, our vets don't get the same, and I don't mean veterinarians, they don't get the same benefits that down in the States, or even respect here. It's like, "Oh, you're a vet, good, next." But I said, well, we got an approval from whatever the finance for the veterans is, went looking for a car. The price changed from the website to the phone call to by the time they got to the dealership, the numbers changed. They got there, the managers are sitting in the tower, they're not watching them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this, I must admit, this person was looking for trouble too. However, this is a prime example of the car business loving to say we don't want to change and we're being dragged into changing, but we've been saying this for 30 years. So Scott, what do you think the biggest blunder is in interdepartment relationships?
I'd have to agree with Tim. It's communication, and I think one of the biggest blunders is either non-existent or a not very good handoff between sales and service. It's very important for the salespeople to bring the customer over. Like, for instance, in our place, we have a little scavenger hunt for them. We give them a bag, they walk them over to service, we give them some prizes, they introduce them to all the service advisors, they walk them over to parts, they give them some more goodies, and introduce them to the parts people and let them know they do accessories and stuff there and anything they need for their car. So that is the biggest blunder, I think, is just a breakdown in communication between the departments, and the customer is the one that suffers because of it.
Yeah, that's very good. Actually, there's a Harley dealer group up here that does this after they do deals. They call it the poker run. And while they're waiting for the F&I to get them approved or to get all the paperwork together, instead of them sitting around doing this, they walk them from department to department. They get little gifts everywhere they go, and they get a card for a poker hand. In the end, they all win they all get the best poker hand, but it's a good point. So Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll second or third on that, what Tim said, communication, and then I'll follow it up with ownership. So whoever intercepts any type of scenario, having an empowered employee who can run with the ball. You may not be the one who solves the problem, but at least you point the customer in the right direction and really take ownership of that and follow up. Just follow up with the customer. Don't assume just because you push them off to somebody or guide them in the right direction that the job is going to get done. There's a lot to be said to close looping any piece of communication internally or externally with a customer, and really getting the point across to be connected with that consumer to the point where you can follow up the following day or later that afternoon and say, hey, did so-and-so employee in department XYZ follow up with you like I said they were going to, and then finishing that whole transaction through with taking ownership of whatever scenario it may be. You don't have to have the wrench in your back pocket to fix the problem, but as long as you have the know-how to follow up with the customer to make sure they were taken care of, that can speak a lot.
So what you're saying is the biggest blunder might be the dealer that doesn't take a call, goes onto their boat, pretends they're not there, and doesn't empower anybody to do it. Might be the biggest blunder. Is that what you're saying?
I'll take that. Yep.
I'm sorry. I got Mr. Steele on the call. No, just kidding. Brooke, you got to answer Larry, but what's your opinion? I'd love to know what you think the biggest blunder is being made right now.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing in communication, but take a little bit different term on it. But yes, the communication both verbally, but it's more than just verbally, and more than verbally. Systems play a big part in that as anyone knows, there's a front of house and back of house. Well, I have seen stores that have two DMSs, one for the front of house and one for the back of house. I've seen, we have the front of house CRM and we have the back of house CRM. What the actual hell are you doing? Well, the only way that our stuff can talk together, we love AutoAlert because we can see everything all together. Why don't we have technology that all just talks to each other? Well, I got to see this and this. So wait a minute, you've got to log into 17 systems to see stuff. So my customer buys something in the front of house products. Now they pull into the back of house and they bought a warranty, but we can't see it in the back of house. So what are we doing? Then there's the communication process. Well, they came in, I didn't book anything, or I booked it, but the OEM, we got to schedule that first visit because the OEM mandates us, but it's so insanely difficult that we can't even book it online because the OEM makes it so damn hard for us, but it's so hard we can't do it. So, just go, we'll figure it out later. Well, okay, now we don't get credit for it because we couldn't figure it out. Now the customer wants to book it for us, book it for themselves. They can't do it because once again, the systems are so archaic, they can't do it. So they just are like, well, screw it, we're just gonna call in. Well, the phone tree is so difficult, they can't figure it out anyways. I just want to schedule an appointment. Why are you making it so difficult for us? So it's communication, not just verbally, but also technology-wise, that goes back out into, once again, Larry, you're gonna love this, the pen. Are we writing stuff down? Are we communicating? Are we talking? The handout portion, it's communication, all inclusive, the communication, because all these different things, when the communication, I was out in Utah this past week, and the hotel has a Starbucks in it, and the register broke. And no biggie. She's like, I'll just get your information and whatever. And I go, okay. So I'm thinking she's going to take down, either have a calculator or write down my room number. No, she takes down my order and takes off like we all just got our meals for free. Now, wouldn't you think, okay, technology breaks down, write stuff down? No, we all, the next 10 people all got their meals for free because the person didn't think either I'll write down a room number or I'll write down, use a calculator. But if technology is going to break down, use the communication portion of it. But so it's all inclusive communication is my answer to that.
Well, 100%. I remember going to a hotel, over 20 years ago in Las Vegas, and their computer was down. So they had like 800 people who had reservations and had to deal with them. Now they were like, okay, here's free buffet. We'll deal with it. We'll figure it out, right? But today, I don't know how to. I still remember doing a car deal years ago when we had a wind took out the power in the building. This happened every year because we'd have a windstorm, and then it was just a question of when. So we were doing it with a flashlight on an old school piece of paper, and people thought we were nuts. But it's possible. But you have to think, and you have to have leadership. And I think part of the challenge today, and to your point, is people are buying lots of technology. Nothing wrong with technology, but does it make sense? Do these?
You've got to think backwards on that technology before you ever buy technology. What is the problem you're trying to solve? If you're just buying something that was really cool and shiny object in a 20 group, stop buying it. What you've got to think backwards. Is that solving a problem you have? You're just buying it because it was red shiny object and you're buying it just because of the hell of it. Stop buying shit. Stop buying it.
Guys, Brooke is 100% correct.
Right.
Don't waste your money with technology. Reach out to Larry Feldman. I'll come in. I'll train your guys.
Reach out to anybody. Come on, Larry. Come on.
There we go. And Brooke will be with me. We'll stop and get some free Starbucks, and then we'll go to your stores and pick up the free gifts. We hang with Jeff and E. We like freebies.
Well, you know what's funny? There's a reason why we talked about this before we went on air. Ray was on. I think I'm not sure. Maybe Scott was on at the time, but we talked about going to NADA, going to conventions, etc., and how they, really it's just a big reason to go out after and celebrate. Well, there's a reason you don't buy software at conventions or 20 groups or etc. Because you're sitting there with your Mai Tai in front of you with the great person from XYZ software, and you sell it. If you're a fixed ops director like Scott or sales manager like Ray, you hear this, you go back to the dealer principal. We gotta have this. They signed up for it, and next thing you know, nobody talks to each other. Well, the technology. Ian.
We have one bonus question here. I know there's been lots of discussion about OEMs changing the retail model. We've actually had shows on it, and I know Ford has been firing some volleys, I heard, as of late. Kind of reminds me of TrueCar back in the day. So my question is, will the OEMs and their infinite wisdom changing the model impact the different departments and how they interact? What do you think, Scott?
I think if they do go to an agency type model, obviously it's going to change the whole landscape of sales. There will be some people that will still deliver the car to the customer, and it will still be necessary to have the handoff to service and whatnot. But I think it may change the whole sales experience. Definitely need to have the same uniformity between all the departments and the communication. And it may make that even tougher because, like I said, there may be less personnel in sales, so more training needed, like I said before, and just a culture shift probably, I would think.
I'm going to ask just an aside to that question then. So if this does happen when it comes to an agency type of setup, is this going to mean that, frankly, the service department's going to try that much harder to get their upsells done? Because they're not worrying about being loyal to the company, because the customer can't really go to sales. If they decide, I'm not going to take my 2004 Outback with 297,000 miles on it and upgrade it. Instead of saying, let me introduce you to a salesperson, is it going to mean that they're going to push that stuff that much harder?
I don't know that they will. And it's still going to be super important to keep them coming back to the dealer, because you do want them to think about buying another car, and maybe you give them a loaner car that, I like this new Outback. I'm going to trade my 2004 in. So,
but how can that work then if they're going to go online They're going to go to Subaru.com and say, I want to get a 2022, 2023 Outback, and I live in Tucson, and their zip code is one that shows them to Scottsdale Subaru.
Yeah, that could be a factor, and it's something we'll have to be prepared for and deal with it as we need to. It's going to be our area of responsibility. We'll determine a lot of that, and we'll have to look hard and push Subaru and make sure if they're in our area, they need to be in our area of responsibility, not Scottsdale's.
Yeah, not a good point. Thank you. Sorry, Ian.
Yeah, Ray, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the workflow and the processes might change, but at the end of the day, we're still going to need the people and the boots on the ground. You always hear the arguments of like the Walmarts of the world going to the self-checkouts, and does that create more jobs or does it remove jobs? And it comes right down to the fact that even though the processes within the systems are changing and adapting, it's the people on the ground that ultimately have to execute it. And yeah, I mean, like anything, inventory shortage, physical geographical location challenges, the processes are what, my focus would initially go to. I haven't really given it a lot of thought, to be honest with you, because of the geographic area we live in. I always say we're about 10 years behind any trends. So, but definitely watching it, it is going to change, and there will be factors we need to look at it and how we do our day to day.
Thanks for that. Tim?
11 years ago, I helped Hilton with a mobile app strategy, and it went from being able to check into your room 24 hours before you arrive to I want a 6-pack of beer and a steak cooked medium rare waiting for me in the room when I get there. The one thing that we had to think about, and we had just wrapped up something with Starbucks similarly, was what does this do from a human capital standpoint? If I can do all the things that I would do waiting in line just to check in at the front desk, do we even need the front desk anymore? Do we even need the people there? And it turns out Hilton has downsized their front desk staff by quite a bit because more and more people are using that app today. It's, the barb I threw at Larry early about rental car companies. For 3 years now, I've been using Turo. Why do I use Turo? Because it's a direct, no paperwork, no rental car shuttle. I know exactly which car I'm going to get. It's going to cost me half as much, not have half the fees, with half the overhead paying for real estate at the airport. It's just easier. It's frictionless. Same thing's going to happen with car dealers. The digitization, to Brooke's point, with technology today talking to each other about having that single source of truth, having integrated systems, all of that is going to make it to where I think we'll see dealers get leaner when it comes to headcount, and we'll see a lot of the things that we're all been prescribing on this call today are going to be possible. And to the way you pose the question, right? A lot of that's going to be because the OEMs are saying, hey, these cars that we're building now have 1/200th the amount of moving parts on them. Things are going to be different in terms of their needs. They'll have software issues, not mechanical issues. And there's that. There's the fact that the OEM, every night when that car's parked in the garage, the firmware gets updated, but everywhere that car's been and everything that car's done that day is beamed up to a server somewhere, and the cloud, if you will, and then maybe somebody in Detroit or Germany or somewhere else is computing it. They're analyzing that. Robots are doing it in the interim while we sleep. So these are all things that are happening today that are going to change drastically what this looks like. So I think it's just been natural that the automotive business as a whole has been behind. They've been 4, 5, 10 years behind in terms of what a lot of other industries have done to move forward and make experiences frictionless and one-to-one, peer-to-peer. And that's where I was going with the Sewell thing earlier. I mean, what's old is new again. And you got guys like Larry to come in and train us how to do it.
Brooke, what do you think?
So I don't know if you guys, everyone's guys on here at this point. So if everyone remembers back when aluminum first came on the scene and shops, it was just hell of expensive to try. If anyone become certified, you know, all these techs, all the technology and the machinery. And at the time, my younger brother and I had a company, a software company for collision body shops. I remember if anyone's is big in the collision industry, Mike Anderson's a very large name in the industry, and we were working with Mike Anderson, and he just keep preaching, why is no one raising your rates? Like, it costs you how much to get that machine and how much to get this? And they're like, well, I don't know, we've just always done it this way. He's like, you're losing money. Why are you not, you need to increase your rates. And so I was posing this question a couple weeks ago to someone, and with EVs, and I believe that, and I'm hoping to get the stat right, is that of the EV, everything right now, 75% of EV service is going outside of dealerships. I was like, man, that's a lot that we're missing out on that. So if we go to everything, if this all goes forward the way that it looks like it's going to, or it perceives that it's going, what happens then? Is it going to continue to go outside, or are we going to keep that inside? If it's going to go inside, we're going to have to charge more for that, because the increase in charge to certify our technicians, all the equipment, all that's going to cost more. So that's one portion of it. When you go to the EV portion of it, when you start looking of what Ford is saying, when you start to break that down, and Brian Pash did a really good job of breaking this down, and I'm not going to go into all the different levels of what he went through, and those are just like 10 breakdown bullet points of it, but it really starts to think of, this has not been thought through at all by Ford, at all. But there are so many ramifications of what will happen, and to the points of the made here is that it will cut out the dealership. You will just become a delivery service center. All those Taj Mahal dealerships, they're beautiful, beautiful dealership buildings, are for what? Because you're just a delivery center. What happens to the service part? What happens to the trade-ins? What happens to the corporate margin? What happens to all those different things that we know as today? What happens to everything we know as today? So I think there's just a lot that what you're asking is, there's a lot of, I don't know, so if this actually goes forward the way that, what they're saying, or was this just going back to my very first statement that I cannot take credit for, it's just something that was said on another show, was this just something that was pounding the chest because it was said in front of a bunch of high-powered people, or is this something that's actually going to come to pass? And if it is, what's going to happen to what we know as today as dealership land and the fix-op portion, because there's so much investment that goes into that, and what happens to those techs? And then the advisors and everything in between. So that's what I would.
Brooke, that's on top of the fact that the electric cars need much less service. So the back end, every dealer, myself included, I've ever met, was trying to battle penetration to get it to the point where the service department paid all your bills, or God forbid you were a foreign car deal. We were Cadillac. You were profitable, so you were making money before you sold the car. What the hell?
And you can't even get the
that?
products for it, anyways. You can't get the batteries. You can't get anything.
Right, to piggyback that on top. So if it goes electric, the whole concept of service penetration goes in a different direction. And now on top of that, they're trying to put us the hell out of business.
We have to be careful here because, Larry, as 25 years ago, cars were done differently. Your service was done differently. I'll never forget the first time I saw a wireless diagnostic on a BMW with a car sitting in the bay, and the car sitting in the drive-through, and a tech sitting in his bay on his laptop diagnosing the car right away. So things will change. We got a show coming up in October, another one of our EV shows. And there is a group here called the Automotive Retailers Association in BC. And they've actually going to a whole new process of certifying technicians and everything else. And it's in October. It's worth looking at because they're going beyond this whole idea of that you can't service them. And we were running out of time, but I do have to say, one of the big opportunities is, a prime example is, I bought a Nissan Leaf at the auction. It went through post-sale inspection. It's great. It's good. Super duper car. They sent it to a certified electric shop. Super duper car. The car died. In the 5-mile drive between the auction and my lot, it died. They towed it back. It's a good car. Finally went to the dealer, the right dealer. and the dealer diagnoses it and says, you've got dead cells in your batteries.
Oof.
That is, the car's toast. Let's not kid each other here. But there is an opportunity for people who know what they're doing. And this is where a dealer can pull up their socks, because I kind of agree and disagree with Brooke. It's not, this whole electrification is not if, it's when. Because, we opened the show and we're going a little too long here about a Formula One driver who's protesting against oil with the biggest oil company in the world, his sponsor. So, it's going that way some way. We have to adapt. We have no choice, in my humble opinion. And with that, we've kind of run out of time. I'll let Ian close it, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Tim, I'm going to go from Larry a little bit while he's looking at the guitar. I see the Pantera behind you, the old Trans Am in that picture. And I swear that other picture on your right side says Darth Vader's rules, but I know it's not. So thank you very much for everybody. We really appreciate it. Larry, thanks for your input. Scott, Ray, a real pleasure. And Tim, a real pleasure to meet you guys. And thank you very much. And Brooke, as always. Ian.
All right, here we go. Thanks very much.